So I plan to make this one of very few talking about writing episodes because I just find that there's so much out there about talking about writing, and this is how you do this part of the writing, and this is why you don't want to use prepositions, and this is why you don't want to use A, B, and C trope, and blah, 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 blah. There's so much of that out there, and I've only, within the last year or so, started to really realize that my own writing creativity has really suffered because I've been just honing in on all of the writing community voices. And it's not because I'm not trying to get away from all of it now because it's bad advice or anything like that, but it really starts to make me feel, well, there's a few different reasons. I've written them down, and that's the purpose of this vlog, is just to share my experiences with all of the talk about writing and the articles about writing, and why I am now trying to avoid all of that chat, all of those articles until I am in the editing process or the revision process of whatever piece of writing I've already finished, and now looking for, a little more, some more voices, some advice, some practical writing advice. And so there's a few reasons that I've written down as to why I've started to avoid these how-to writing articles and podcasts and things like that. So I guess you could consider this to be an anti-writing advice vlog. But, so the first reason is that when you when you really start to listen to all of it and read it, and it starts to really it sinks in, and it can cause second guessing before the creative process begins. So for me, it's like, I'm always like, okay, well, is this the right way to start a novel or a short story? Is this the right way that they should be talking? Is this the right way to do dialogue? And stuff like that. So it makes me feel like I'm on a tightrope, so to speak, or like I'm writing on eggshells. And it's so much better to just not think about that and just start thinking about, just reeling in and starting to think about, well, what would I find interesting? What kind of dialogue would I believe? Things like that. Just remembering to come back to myself as the writer, as the creator. Another thing that these podcasts and writing articles seem to do is create procrastination. So instead of writing, it's just easy to turn on the podcast or pick up the magazine or pick up the book, It's as easy as that. It causes procrastination. And then, let's see, I also have that taking it all into consideration too much and thinking about all those pieces of advice floating around, it might actually shave away from your unique style of writing. So as opposed to what I was kind of getting at before, feeling like your own, like you can't be creative in your own way, I feel like it might actually shave away your own creativity if you take it to heart too much. And then I have, it might actually create the cliche writing format and or style that maybe you're now self-conscious of or self-aware of, because a lot of the advice is to avoid A, B, and C, you know, stereotype, trope writing. But in the, you know, in the act of trying to avoid that type of writing, it's very possible to just, that we actually start to write a certain other way. So, you know, like the beginning, the rise, the climax, the fall, like, I guess, like, most stories, if not all, have that. And I'm not just pointing that out, but there's so many other ways of writing a story, and that A, B, C, D, E style might just be one style. I always come back to Jane Eyre because I still love her stuff. And Jane Eyre is very non-traditional. So you have like a big portion of the beginning of the book is about her childhood and all of that, and then it's like that's a big chunk in the beginning, and then bam, then you kind of start getting into the main point of the book. And in today's publishing, they would probably just say you need to cut like 3/4 of that intro out of your book. And part of me, you know, I mean, maybe, but then it wouldn't be Jane Eyre, it would be a different book. My thought is taking things out that, no matter how much revision you have, it just turns your book, your story, your poem into a different item. Revision and editing just creates a different item. Sometimes, usually with editing and revision, hopefully it creates a better version. But I think sometimes too much of going a traditional route, it can shave away your own creative voice and style and create some cliches that you might not otherwise have gone into. And then this other point that I was thinking about is that it takes away the fun and like the raw thrill of writing. Because when you're trying to drink every potion and carrying every rule book, you can't dance. You can't dance with a big backpack on your back. It's just, that's kind of my takeaway, is like, if you just keep taking in and taking in and taking in, at what point it's harder to get down to that seed of what makes you a unique writer, in my opinion. It takes away from the raw thrill of writing, because you're always thinking about, you're second guessing. Yeah, and this last point kind of carries back, it kind of echoes to the first couple points that I made, that it makes you second guess everything, and it makes you self-conscious about writing, because you have all of these different voices and rules and advice just hanging in the back of your mind, because you just listened to an hour-and-a-half podcast or 15-minute podcasts about, with, you know, established successful writers talking about why A, B, and C doesn't work in a story, and why 1, 2, 3 is the way that you need to get published. And it's just washing it away and returning to the art of writing is just a relief. So that has been my takeaway over the past year or so, and I'm really glad that I've started to adopt this mindset, because it does. It makes writing fun again. And I've realized that over the years it feels more like something that I'm aiming more toward the reader about rather than myself. Like when I first started writing, as a kid or whatever, it wasn't about the reader. It was about me and what I was creating and the story that I had. And then I hit high school and, met different people and was introduced to different ideas and different avenues and outlets, and then all of a sudden it wasn't about me anymore. It was about the reader. And when you start really getting into all of that thought process, it really does. It shaves away that raw art of writing and what writing really means at the heart of it. I mean, yes, it is about the reader, but it's got to first come from here. So that's why all of those, the writing dialogue, the narrative about writing, it has its place. It really does. And I'm really glad it's out there because I enjoy listening to it all. But I'm definitely saving the bulk of me as an audience. I'm saving it for when I'm actually editing and in the revision process. One thing that I was thinking about too is changing my thought process from what would be interesting to read. What would be interesting to read? I'm just writing my story. What would be interesting to read? There's that thinking, and then there's what would I want to read? And it sounds like a very subtle difference, but it makes all the difference in the world, because what would be interesting to read? Well, blah, 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 blah. You can come up with 1,000 different cliche story ideas with that thinking. But when you turn it back onto yourself, which, I mean, you're the creator. You're the writer, the author. When you turn it back to yourself and ask yourself, well, what would I want to read? That's the whole point of writing. That's why we're writing, is because we need to create something that we haven't come across yet, but something that we need. So just that little difference, what would I want to read? It has helped me get back to writing when I'm in a block, or if I'm just don't know where to go with a character. Once I start rethinking in that frame of mind, it usually helps me get going again. So anyway, I just hope that something I said in this video helps someone out there, especially like if you're feeling inadequate or as a writer, or like feeling like you're not a valid writer, or whatever it is. Or maybe you just don't know why you can't get going, or maybe you don't quite know why you stopped enjoying writing as much as you used to. Whatever it is, I just hope that this video was able to connect with someone. So anyway, I hope y'all get to writing at some point soon, and keep running with your words.